Okay, so I got a couple of pieces on Boris. So one of the things about British political parties is that they have an annual convention, not just the year of an election. They have an annual convention. This is where the party faithful, the paid-up members, drinking something sensible there. The paid-up members, in the case of the Labour Party, which would be our Democrats, the union brass and thuggery would be the audience. What a surprise. And in the case of the Lib Dems, just assorted socialists, communists, and wackos would be in the audience. And they've all had their conventions. And this is where they supposedly present their platform for the upcoming year, tell us what they're thinking, maybe change up some of the leadership of the party, etc. And so Boris went into this, and one of the things he's been spouting the last week or so is the simple three-word slogan, get Brexit done. He wants out. He knows the majority of the people want out. And by heck, he's going to do his best to make it happen. Notwithstanding all the delays, obfuscation, illegality, and traitorous collusion with foreign leaders, which are going on behind his back, which I'll get onto in a moment. But Boris was always known as a wit before he became the Prime Minister. In particular, he wrote for, I think it was the British Spectator magazine, which I've been reading of late. And as I was known to be quite a funny guy, almost a stand-up comedian. But he's been Mr. Serious as Prime Minister. He hasn't really sparked any kind of applause other than for his intent to get the job done. Well, in his speech to the convention, he got himself fired up. And the Spectator referred to it as a weapons-grade speech. Let me quote you a couple of lines. You'll see what I mean. He basically did a stand-up funny role. He didn't go heavy on policy. He just laid out the positions and the problems. If Parliament were a laptop, the screen would be showing the pizza wheel of death. If Parliament were a reality TV show, the whole lot of us would have been voted out of the jungle by now. In other words, it's non-functional. And he did much more. And they're saying this is his natural tone. Where's it been the last few weeks? And he's much more effective. Here we go on economics. If you ask me how we are going to grow the UK economy, I will tell you that it is by raising the productivity of the whole of the UK, not with socialism, not with deranged and ruinous plans borrowed from the playbook of Bolivarian revolutionary Venezuela, but by creating the economic platform for dynamic free market capitalism. Yes, you heard it right, capitalism. And when did you last hear a Tory leader talk about capitalism? And he carried on in that kind of vein. He had them laughing, and he got their attention. Pretty excellent stuff. The guy said there was no policy, no news, but it was better than any speech David Cameron delivered at any conference. That's pretty serious stuff. He'd basically gone a bit too serious since he first took the job, and he decided to get their attention by just making the point about how non-functional Parliament has been, and how things needed to work better, and there's no socialism on my watch.
Do you think it increased his capability of being able to get Brexit done quickly, or is he still in a morass?
Well, it's funny you mention that. You might as well have Bill Barr working in London in his second identity. Downing Street has launched a major investigation into the alleged links between foreign governments and the MPs behind the Surrender Act, which they passed in order to prevent Boris from doing Brexit and forcing him to ask for yet another extension. And they took action because they found out that the people who drafted the bill that was designed to handcuff him were in fact meeting with leaders from the European Union and also staff at the French embassy in London, and that foreign assistance was involved in drafting the bill, setting the words of the bill. This would be like a George Soros think tank writing the porculus bill for Obama, for example, which they did. It's exactly that kind of thing. And, you talk about foreign collusion, you talk about treason. I mean, Ted Kennedy in Moscow, anybody? Begging for them to help with his election chances and to be patient while the Democrats tried to stop Reagan from doing the good stuff. Or Obama saying he'd give away our missiles to the Russians. And they think Trump's a traitor? No, of course they don't think he's a traitor, but they're going to try and convince the electorate he is. Same kind of thing here. So the British Daily Mail reported that rebel MPs have even drawn up plans for a second act. How they get royal assent for this, I do not know, that would allow the Speaker of the Commons to act on behalf of Parliament without the Prime Minister and request the extension for the exit from the EU. But as I say, the most controversial thing is that the act that they passed before the rogues were prorogued, that is, Parliament was suspended, was in fact written by by members of the EU. They found out that the people that been involved in drafting it had meetings at the French embassy and had words provided for them. And this is political dynamite for the Remain camp, because the British public is very unlikely to approve of secret deals with the French cheese-eating surrender monkeys, whatever you want to call them, to sabotage the will of the British electorate that said, "Get me the hell out." This is
cheese-eating surrender monkeys. I can't believe they went to the French to write this. I just can't believe it. I don't understand why they wouldn't realize that this would get out and it would totally turn the people against them.
Yeah, I find it pretty interesting. So the game is still afoot, as Sherlock said to Watson. And so the party conferences are behind us. The middle of October beckons, and what happens in the middle of October is there will be an EU summit at which Parliament fondly imagines they have forced Boris to ask for an extension, where I think Boris is going to make such extension so unpalatable that they're going to refuse to give it to him. And then they've got to figure out what happens at the end of October if the EU hasn't granted an extension or Boris hasn't asked for one. Whether they're going to allow it just to go away or whether they're going to pitch some other last-ditch deal to somehow try and handcuff the UK to the EU. And again, the people don't want it. And one suspects that the vote against, i.e. the vote to leave, would be larger if it was done again, just because of all the shenanigans trying to undo the will of the people.
Oh.
That's
sorry, for some reason.
Pretty interesting.
On. Skip, you're muted.
Unmute.
There you go.
Thank you. For some reason,
I keep seeing muted and unmuted flash across my screen, so I hope I'm not getting chopped up.
No, you're not. I'm controlling your message. No, you're fine. I'm just messing with these buttons and trying to do it when you're not talking. So go ahead, Skip.
I just find it rather amusing and perhaps a little scary in that we see what's going on with Trump with the impeachment and the nonstop nonsense since before he got elected, and we're seeing the same thing now with Boris, where
and with Benjamin Netanyahu.
And Netanyahu and oh gosh, the guy down in South America,
President of Brazil, yes,
correct,
Bolsonaro.
That's correct. And I just keep thinking to myself, how, is this a worldwide deep state? Let's walk into that conspiracy theory room here for just a moment. But I notice that it's
Mr.
all
Jones.
about yes. I look at, the conservative leaders are all getting torn apart by basically the same kinds of creatures in similar kinds of ways, meant to do one and only one thing: make them look bad, bollocks up their actions, and basically discredit them before everybody else. I don't know what they're doing in the other countries, but certainly we have seen that here in the United States, those on the left are not just going after Trump, but trying to go after all of the Trump supporters. You know, it started off with the deplorables and irredeemables. You know, the three of us, as well as others on GrokTALK, have been called a whole lot of other things as well. But now the left is really trying to, and a lot of it is the Democrat presidential wannabes that have really gotten into this act of calling people despicable. That was Cory Booker's epithet against conservatives as well. How do they expect to win? You know, if a company alienates half of its potential customers, it goes out of business. With the races that can be so close, except for California, how do you think that they could win if they alienate even just an additional 5% of folks to say, I'm tired of being called all these names and then being told I have to vote for you?
Well, I think we've seen that evidence recently. I mean, Minnesota could be in play. It's entirely possible. We had a report up on GrokTALK.com that covered interviews done by CNN, of all places, that talked to people in Democrat Minnesota that vote Democrat down ticket, but are going to vote for Trump for president because he has been great for their economy. We've seen it in states like Pennsylvania, where you have Liz Warren saying she's going to end fracking. Well, there's a lot of blue-collar workers in Pennsylvania who are getting rich, or at least well off, and making a living on fracking. Fracking is huge in Western Pennsylvania. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to cut your job, vote for me anyway, so that you can live on welfare and food stamps. Those people are voting for Trump too. So this is happening I mean, everywhere there's fracking, you're going to get blue-collar workers voting for Trump because he's protecting their livelihoods. It's happening all over the place. 90% of Republicans support Trump. 90%. That's more than when he was elected. What the hell are the Democrats doing? They are losing what they're doing.
They're losing communities one after another. And I think Colorado is going to be a little redder than it was before for the same kind of reason, because it's a fracking state. I pulled up an interesting picture I'll share for just a moment. 1 second. Yeah, we were talking about conspiracy theories. Apparently, Curious George discovered Alex Jones and was fascinated. That's a satire picture from the Babylon Bee, but I just thought it was worth mentioning. Let me unshare.
Thank you for sharing.
Just had to post that one up when we started the conversation. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the government everywhere. Now, I had a follow-on piece. We were talking about the government and yet another attempt at impeachment and all the stuff that the deep state is throwing at Trump. And my comment was, you know, the purpose of the president, or one of the sworn duties of the president, is to ensure that the laws are faithfully executed. There is a law, a whistleblower law. It goes back about 2 decades. This whistleblower law sets out what can and can't be done, sets out the terms under which a whistleblower complaint can be made, by whom, to whom, etc. And there were rules drawn up against that statute, or pursuant to that statute, which included that the whistleblower had to have first-hand knowledge of the misbehavior to be complained about in order to make a valid complaint. And it turns out that this whistleblower, who is, let's be honest, is a spy and should be hung the way Trump suggested. A little ungentlemanly of him, but you know what? He's accurate. This guy effectively put together hearsay in no better manner than Christopher Steele did on Trump and Russia, and presented it actually first to Adam Schiff, who then got guidance, who got a law firm whose business is helping whistleblowers. we'll write your complaint for you. We'll fund your mortgage or your living costs while you're out of work making your complaint. We'll push you through witness coaching, please. And this, this is an honest representation. So this guy who never saw or heard anything and isn't being named yet and isn't naming his sources is now allowed to make this complaint. You notice that I said first-hand knowledge. Well, in August, this must have been bubbling, and we'll find out the timeline in due course. In August, the rules for the whistleblower complaints were changed in order to make it possible for someone with knowledge of, but not first-hand knowledge of, an issue to make a complaint about it and take it to the Inspector General of the intelligence community, who turns out to be heavily linked with Mueller and Comey and all those other people. What a surprise. And so effectively, the deep state, when Schumer said, you piss them off, they'll get you 6 ways from Sunday. Well, they're still trying. They're still ticked off at Trump. And they basically changed the rules so they could have a second-hand complaint that had no knowledge of the phone calls with Ukraine. And now, I just want to throw a chaser after that. And now I see news stories that Giuliani had Trump recall the ambassador to Ukraine because the ambassador was undermining him. I think that probably means Trump, not Giuliani. And well, guess what? It's the president's prerogative to recall ambassadors that aren't representing his views in foreign countries. Of course, it's a scandal because he's doing what he's entitled to do. And I'll stop for a bit.
I'm just hoping that the timing on all of this, and it seems like if you listen to a lot of the Republican talking heads and some of the people who supposedly are working for the president, that a lot of the stuff that has been projected by the Democrats as being a win to them is going to be tying them about the feet, hips, hands, and neck pretty soon against the Democrats. The question is, how much longer is it going to take for some of this stuff to come out? I keep hearing that this is going to get declassified, this is going to be pushed out, we've got other stuff going on, and I keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and I keep saying, is the Trump folks going to do something, or is this just going to be verbal stalemate? Because to be honest with you, I'm getting mighty tired of it.
No, I'm not.
But the Democrats...
I think they know what they're doing.
The Democrats, yeah.
I'm going to mute you. Ha, 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 I muted you. Like I said, 90% Republican support. His total support nationally continues to go up. The economy is buoying the man. I think he knows what he's doing. I think they're waiting until they start seeing primary activity, and they're going to just start blowing people out of the water next year. There's really no electoral advantage to it. The truth is going to come out one way or another. And while we wait, the Democrats are going to run around like rats on a burning ship. So let them do it. They've been hanging themselves left and right for 2.5, 3 years. I don't see any reason to stop now.
That's fair enough. And I think the whole point is the Democrats are not tired of it, and they're not going to be tired of it until they get rid of Trump. But they're going to keep wearing out their welcome with the people. So we have to roll with it, and we can at least enjoy Trump's responses as he blows them up. And Giuliani's a happy warrior, too. Remember where he said last week about this revelation where they're talking about the phone call and trying to get Biden, which it turns out wasn't really what the call was about. And he said they have fallen into a trap. And I think there's more and more of this. The Democrats are falling into traps. They were so eager to run with this particular story because they want rid of Biden as much as maybe we want rid of Biden, or perhaps we don't. Perhaps Biden's the perfect foil for Trump. But they want rid of Biden because they think he's no longer got a chance. And then, of course, Warren rises to the top, and Wall Street says, you know, this bed that we've been in for the last couple of decades, Well, we're hopping out in our wallets, snapping shut if you elect that one as your candidate. They know that Warren is very bad for business, and they're willing to pull their money from the Democrats. Who the heck knows if they'd give it to Trump, but they ain't giving it to the Democrats if Warren's the nominee.
Be interesting to see if that falls through if she does become the nominee. That would be the first time in a long time that a lot of these Wall Street folks don't give to them, and I think she's already ticked off the FANGs, the high-tech folks like Facebook, where Zuckerberg already said, if she wins, we're filing a lawsuit right off the bat. And I'm betting that Google isn't going to be helping her. And I bet that Google folks aren't going to be helping her as much as they did Hillary.
GrokTV.